It's that time again for another Q&A here on Orange Grove 55. But today I brought my fantastic friend, collaborator, host of Citrus Corner here on OG 55, Mr. Disney Family Man 23, to go over your questions. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Hey everybody, welcome to another Q&A video here at Orange Grove 55. We took a lot of your questions. I posted on the community tab actually a few times this week for you at home to submit all your questions so we can answer them in future Q&As. And I took a bunch of your questions, and me and George here, we're going to dive into them and address those questions today. But before we do that, George, if you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You can also find me on Twitter at Disney George, and of course on Mr. Orange Grove 55's channel with Citrus Corner.
Yes. Well, George, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to dive in. Let's do our first question of the day, which is coming from Isadoro Rendon. And Isadoro is asking, love the content. Well, thank you, Isadora. We appreciate the kind words. He's asking, what are your hopes for Hollywoodland in DCA? Any potential ride ideas you would like to see if Marvel doesn't swallow it up? George, what are your thoughts on this, man? Hollywoodland. What's your vision? What do you want to see? Go into this land if it isn't swallowed up by Marvel.
Hollywoodland is sort of kind of like one of those things where it's like a catch-22 is what I like to call it, is because it has the potential to be a lot. And I apologize, folks. I have the Mr. Train coming by from Main Street as we speak. But it's when they first did the DCA 2.0 with Buena Vista Street and Cars Land, it kind of gave some leadway for Hollywoodland to kind of expand, because it brought you into that portal of time when Walt first came to Hollywood, came to California with a suitcase and a dream. And and right off of Buena Vista Street, it fit in perfectly. And then with the red car trolley and what have you, now you still have Buena Vista Street, which is phenomenal, obviously. But then when you walk down the street, you don't have the Hyperion anymore, because you have the Hyperion building, but you don't have no show. The Tower of Terror is now Mission Breakout, which is part of Avengers Campus. And then you have that backlot area, which you have a Pixar attraction that shouldn't even be there, because you have Pixar Pier on the other end. So it's almost like Hollywoodland right now has an identity crisis that the whole park used to have. Right. So it's like that little part of like 1.0 is still sitting there. But to answer the question, very good question. If it wasn't to become more of Marvel, I would like to see more of that classic Disney. Yeah. Like I would like to see something with especially with the with Buena Vista Street, maybe something like with, and I know this is kind of going off because they usually have a lot of this stuff at Disneyland Park, but involving Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and the classic Golden Age films, because it would tie into Buena Vista Street. And then maybe you could even have a little section where you could add in Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, especially Beauty and the Beast. I'm sorry. They should at least have something with that in either park, because Beauty and the Beast is one of those staple films that in history that garnered a Best Picture Oscar, and to not have no love with Beauty and the Beast in the parks it should be a sin.
Yeah. Oh no, completely agree. And this is the thing. Yeah. If Marvel doesn't swallow up Hollywoodland, I would like to see, I just want to see what you were saying, George, in general, I just want to see more variety brought into California Adventure. Right now, the whole park basically consists of two brands, Pixar and Marvel. And now if you go into Hollywoodland and make it all Marvel, that's even more true. That's even more the case. And I don't really want that. I want DCA to have a variety of franchises, a variety of kind of experiences. So if they can make Hollywoodland, you know, a little more diverse in that arena, where, you know, bring an attraction based on, I mean, even like, see, I would have loved to seen like Runaway Railway put in Hollywoodland. I think that would have been a perfect fit for California Adventure. That would have been something that I think the park really needs. So certainly a lot more than Disneyland. Disneyland's already so stacked already. But something like that, like a big family dark ride that everyone can go on, that's not Marvel, that's not Pixar. Something along those lines would be really, really cool in Hollywoodland. I just want to see other things brought into this park. I don't want it to just be 50% Marvel and 50% Pixar. I want to see more stuff that's different. You mentioned a lot of great stuff. Beauty and the Beast, Cinderella, that golden age of Hollywood. That would be fantastic. Yeah, it would be really, really cool. So that's the kind of stuff I really want to see.
Or even if they had like broken down like mini lands within the land, like you would have the Golden Age section and then you'd have the Renaissance section.
Right. That would be very cool.
And with the Little Mermaid ride, that would even do better over in that area, because now where the Little Mermaid sits, right across from it is Pixar Pier. So as you circle around to Paradise Gardens and then back around, you have the Little Mermaid right there, but then the rest of it, when you cross over, is all Pixar. I mean, aside from Goofy Sky School and everything, which I think in time that's going to end up becoming Pixar in, you know, in a short amount of time.
Well, and I think I was on a video with Vash Sky a few weeks ago. We were talking about like Toontown and Roger Rabbit and things like that. And we came up with this idea of like an ink and paint club from the movie and bring it into Disney parks, where you can go and have a drink and have themed drinks, you know, based around the tunes, you know, and, you know, hey, themed bars are big business at Disney. And to see like an ink and paint club in Hollywood, it would fit perfectly theme wise. And I think
the time era was in the 40s.
It was in the 40s. It would be great, you know, and also, I mean, I'll even take it a step further. I mean, if Disney wanted to get rid of Roger Rabbit in Toontown for whatever reason, I'd even be okay with them building a Roger Rabbit ride in Hollywoodland. Cause again, that fits that area so well, you know, that would be really cool. That old school 30s, 40s Hollywood. It's just it's so Roger Rabbit, and to have that in Hollywoodland, I think would be so good.
And then the ride system for Monsters Inc., it would be a very smooth transition, because it's not too much of a change as far as like what I mean, you would have to change the ride vehicles, but I mean the track layout itself for Monsters Inc. as opposed to Roger Rabbit, they're pretty much close to being similar.
Yeah.
But even if they were to, and I'm even going to go a step further, I would love to see more Oswald.
Me too.
More Oswald.
I would love to see an Oswald attraction. That would also fit very well in Hollywoodland. Look, just off the top of our head, we came up with a ton of great ideas for Hollywoodland. There's so much potential here for this land if they really want to go all out with it, or as you say, George, balls to the wall. They have a lot of potential to do some really great stuff here. Even if they're insistent on the Marvel kind of IP taking over Hollywoodland, you can still do that in a way that would be kind of different. Like you have Buena Vista Street, which is like the 1930s. Well, you can have Hollywoodland, which could be centered around like the 1940s, and have 1940s Los Angeles have a Captain America e-ticket, you know, based in the 40s, things like that. If they want to do Marvel, go that route. I think that would be really cool, because then you're keeping the Hollywood theme. You're adding and complementing Buena Vista Street, but yet you're still appeasing the executives with the Marvel IP, the moneymaker, the bread and butter. It kind of hits all boxes. So there's a lot of potential here. Eventually they'll address it, but we'll see what direction they go, and it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, very much so. And I think Hollywoodland, as you and Mr. Vash Sky had mentioned in a previous recording, I think, it was the Tomorrowland one, where I think Hollywoodland definitely needs more love right now than Tomorrowland.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Tomorrowland, at least Tomorrowland has like some e-tickets, with Space Mountain and they got Star Tours and things like that. Hollywoodland has none of that. It's in bad shape right now. Really bad shape. So, but thanks for the question, Isadora. We do appreciate it. And the next question comes from Mr. Matthew Murr. And Matthew, friend of the channel, by the way. Matthew comments on like all the videos. He's given us a ton of support. Really do appreciate you, Matthew. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So Matthew's asking 3 questions, actually. Number 1, do you think the vote against Chapek, even if successful, might have had any real effect in removing him from his position as CEO? Now, I do want to clarify what this question means. I did reach out to Matthew and he kind of clarified it because initially I wasn't really sure. What Matthew is referring to is the shareholder vote a few weeks ago to keep or not keep Bob Chapek on the board. Now, they did vote to keep him on by quite a large margin. I think it was like 90-something% voted to keep him on the Disney board. What Matthew's asking is, what if that vote didn't go that way and it was, more of a vote of no confidence and he didn't get the 90% yes vote and it was something in the opposite direction? Would it have any effect in removing him from his position as CEO? George, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that if the vote would have went the other way and it would have been bad for Chapek, would that have hurt his chances of keeping his position as the CEO as well, you think?
In my personal opinion, I don't think so. And the reason why is if there was something else tied to it and that thing would be the quarterly earnings, then I would have suggested that there could have been a possibility that Chapek might have been up. But when those quarterly earnings came in, I think everyone kind of knew no matter what his position would be on the board or not as CEO, he wasn't going to get touched because at the end of the day, the Walt Disney Company is a business. They want to see those margins being filled. They want to see the dough rolling in. And right now, Chapek is doing that. Yeah. He's keeping it as much as everyone has very strong feelings about him right now on a personal level as a sort of a Disney commander-in-chief sort of thing. They all have their strong feelings about him. But when it comes to what he's doing and bringing in for the company as of right now, I don't really think that would have had a major impact if they voted him off the board as far as his position as CEO. But as I said, if those quarterly earnings would have been anything different than what they were, anything below that margin, then I think they might have possibly considered somebody else for the job at that time.
Yeah, I would agree with you, George. I don't think it would have immediately affected his standing as CEO. I do think it would have been one more crack in the armor, though. That would have worked against him later on. I think that, and I've mentioned this before in other videos, but like, it's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts. Like the ScarJo thing didn't get him removed as CEO, but it was a big blemish, right, for Chapek. This whole thing with the Florida bill didn't remove him from his position, but again, another black eye, another blemish for Chapek. This shareholder vote, if they voted him off the board, would have been yet another black eye. It just doesn't help. The guy's had a lot of losses, a lot of he's been knocked down a lot. And anytime you have these kind of things, they add up after a while. So I think it would have affected him long term. Maybe the board would have reconsidered renewing his contract in February. Maybe they're still not sure if they're going to renew him. I don't know. But all that would have come into play for sure. So short term, no, he would have been fine, Matthew. But long term, yeah, it would have come into play, I think, eventually. Eventually, this stuff is going to factor into whether the board wants to renew him as CEO in February 2023. This stuff adds up. Chapek needs right now. I'm telling you, if Chapek wants to keep his job in February, he's got to bring in some wins. He's got to do some stuff that's perceived as a big win for him. because right now it's been loss after loss for him. The quarterly earning was a great thing for him. That was fantastic, but he needs more of that. He needs more stuff, more good, more positive headlines. Otherwise, I don't know. We'll see what happens in February, but it's going to be interesting.
And it makes me wonder too if Disney is waiting it out to see if he really doesn't want the position by that time. He may want to bow out himself. And for me, as you had mentioned, right now the quarterly earnings is good on the the corporate side, but then you also have to have the guests and the fans on your side as well, because this is what Disney is doing it for. They're doing it for the fans. They're doing it for their guests. And if you have that sort of way about you, that it's going to be very interesting, I'll say to the least, now at the D23 Expo, if he's even going to show. Yeah.
And it would be a big mistake if he didn't. And we've talked about that a lot, George. Like, he needs to show up at D23, and what he needs to do is he needs to win people over. Look, Chapek is never going to win everyone over. There are some people that just will never get on board, and that's fine. That they have every right to not like the guy or not support him, and that's totally fine. I understand that. But Chapek needs to try to win people over that are kind of on the fence, that are willing to, that have an open mind and willing to give the guy a shot. He needs to go to D23. I've said it before. I'll say it again. He needs to make fun of himself a little bit, maybe joke around about what a terrible year he's had. Or, if you think your year was bad, look at the year I've had, or just some kind of self-deprecating humor. It humanizes him, and it makes him, more likable, right? Not so stiff and rigid and corporate and polished. Like, get in there, kind of make fun of yourself a little bit. I think that would go a long way with fans. He needs to do some big things, like at D23, make some big announcements, maybe for Disneyland Resort or Florida, whatever it is. Make those big announcements, get fans excited, do stuff like that. Because right now he's got a lot of bad press. And look, the quarterly earnings and the money is very important, but also the thing too is, like, the board might get tired, and maybe they're already at that point, but the board might get tired of constantly having this guy in the headlines for all the wrong reasons, for all the bad news. They don't want to have that constantly every week. They might say, hey, look, even if he's bringing money in, do we want to constantly be in the headlines all the time in this way? Maybe not. So he needs some wins. He needs to win over some fans. He needs to steer this public relations boat in a bad way. He also needs to fire whoever his current public relation person is, or people are. He might want to consider firing them and putting someone else in there.
Disney PR right now needs a complete flush out, and they need to bring some more people in, because whoever is running the PR system, and it's atrocious.
Absolutely atrocious. Now, number two, Matthew is asking, what do you think of that anti-Chapek video of Walt's head being unfrozen? I got to be honest with you, Matthew. I didn't see that video. And honestly, the way that you're describing it, I have no desire to. Look, I care deeply for the Walt Disney Company. And if Chapek succeeds, the company succeeds. I have no desire of watching videos mocking him, or like, I don't care about that. I just want to see what we can do to fix the problems that we currently have right now, and to get on the right track. And to watch some video about making fun of him, or just, I don't care. For me, there's no value in that. And I really am just more focused on, like, what can Chapek do to get this train back on track? What can we do to help the Walt Disney Company? That's really all I care about. I don't care about the attacks, the personal attacks on Chapek. I think it's childish. But what do you think, George? Have you seen this video, or do you care at all?
Believe it or not, I echo exactly what you say. I have not seen the video. I have no desire to see the video. It's, for me, for how much of energy it took the person to make that video, that you could put so much of your talents into something else than to, run down a person, and then also bringing Walt into it, which I think is honestly a bigger slap in the face, because we all say the term, oh, Walt would be rolling in his grave right now and everything, but it's like when, Walt's head being unfrozen when he wasn't even frozen. It's
Right.
like and I get it was like more of a pun type thing, but yeah, my main concern is I want to see the company get back up on its feet, get out of this turmoil, get back to where it needs to be. That's my main goal. And when we report all this stuff, a lot of times it may come across as being negative or what have you. And it's like, oh, well, where's the positivity in that? Well, what we're doing is we're just telling the facts. Right. We're reporting what's going on. But that doesn't change the fact that we, as part of this Disney community, does not want to see the Walt Disney Company not succeed. We want them to succeed. Right. We want to see them strive in, in all the obstacles that Walt even had to go through to get his company up to where it is today. And I'm for sure, they've been through a lot, and, they just have to keep moving forward.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah. When we have negative things to say, whether that be about the company, whether that be about Bob Chapek or whatever, it's always done in that sphere of like concern, and it's constructive. Like that's the one thing here that we do on OG55 is we're not just going to sit here and just willy nilly just bash Chapek for the sake of bashing Chapek. I don't want to do that. Like, and neither do you, and neither does Vash. None of the people on this channel want to do that. We want to be constructive. If we have a problem with something that the company is doing, we want to address that concern, but also be constructive. What can they do? Like just now, we just talked about it. What can Chapek do at D23? Well, he can try to be more humanize himself, announce some big things like that. We're trying to help. We're criticizing, but we're also being constructive and offering solutions. So this kind of video right here with Walt's head being unfrozen and being some kind of attack on Chapek, I have no desire to watch that. I'm not going to waste my time. And hey, if it's great for some people and they enjoy it, that's on them. That's great. I just have no desire. It doesn't really do anything for me personally.
Yeah, me neither. It's not my Mad Hatter's cup of tea.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Number 3 from Matthew. Do you think Peter Rice would be better as CEO or chairman of the board, or both? Well, first of all, Matthew, no, I don't think he should be both. I think that Bob Iger, that was a mistake that Disney made by giving Bob Iger all that power. Look, I really liked Bob Iger. I really respect Bob Iger. He wasn't perfect. But he was a brilliant businessman, and he knew how to run Disney very, very well. Flaws and all, right? But one of the big mistakes that Disney made, I think it was in 2012, was giving Bob Iger the power of both CEO and chairman of the board. It's too much on one person, and I think that Disney should have better corporate governance going forward. I'm really glad that the chairman of the board right now is Susan Arnold. That kind of puts a little check on Chapek's power, right? And I think that's good. That's healthy for Disney. So Peter Rice, yes, I think he would be a fantastic CEO. I do think Disney should get back into getting bringing studio people in for the CEO position. I think that was one big mistake they made with Chapek. I think Peter Rice would be great as CEO, but he should not hold both titles. He should not. That's too much power for one person. And the Disney board made a big mistake by allowing Iger to have both of those. And even Iger himself kind of even says that when he said that one of the reasons why he retired was because he noticed that he was sort of becoming intolerant towards different viewpoints. And that's kind of connected to just having too much power and having this thing where like, hey, my word is the final word. A big part of that comes from the fact that he was CEO and chairman of the board. If he had more of a check on his power, I think that would have been a little different. What do you think, George?
Absolutely. I completely agree. I think no matter who you are or what type of position you are of running any kind of company, you should always have someone to keep you in check, to keep you balanced out, because as you had mentioned, it's a lot, it on one person, it's a lot of responsibility. So when you have both titles as CEO and chairman of the board, that's That's quite a lot. And a lot of times both positions can kind of bash
Right.
on one another. So, your CEO vibe can be, trumping the chairman part of you. So it's like, that's where it can kind of conflict with that notion. So yeah, as that part, I don't believe that anybody, whether it's Peter Rice, Kevin Feige, Bob Chapek, Bob Iger at the time, even though he was, that no one should have both positions. I think that they should make that as a kind of a requirement that if you are CEO, you cannot be chairman or vice versa. As far as just CEO goes, I think Peter Rice would be phenomenal as a CEO under Susan Arnold as chairman of the board. Because as you had mentioned before, and I am a big believer of it, when you bring someone in that was part of Paramount and Warner Brothers, and they literally shake the company up in a positive way and bringing them out of that funk into the Renaissance era, especially with Disney animation, it's like, as a company, don't you see that was successful?
And for those of you at home that are maybe not familiar with what he's talking about, that he's referring to Michael Eisner and Frank Wells. Michael Eisner came from Paramount. He was an outsider, and he came in and did the first 10 years at least did an amazing job with Frank Wells and running that company. And it kind of showed that, like, just because you're an outsider doesn't mean that you don't understand Disney. Sometimes the insiders are more tone deaf about that than the outsiders. It just depends on the person, really.
Because I think with an outsider, they want to put into the company of what they would like to see as a fan. And that's what Michael Eisner did a lot of. He was heavily involved in the parks, where he would go out, put on his baseball cap or his Mickey ears, and he'd walk with the crowds. That was just him. And for me, I think it's not as if you know Disney, it's if you know the business.
Right.
And once you get to know how to run that business, that's where the company as Disney will succeed.
Yeah, and you never know. Look, Tom Staggs, who everyone thought did a great job running the parks, myself included, he was the CFO of the company. He was the chief financial officer of the Walt Disney Company for years. And then he got promoted. I guess you would call it a promotion. I'm not really sure, but he moved to head the park division. Well, on paper, people would think, oh, well, this is the finance guy. Like, he's going to be terrible running the parks. And he did a great job. And that's just really goes to show that some of these executives are really smart and they know how to adapt into whatever situation that they're in. This guy went from basically being the company accountant to running a very creative division of the company, and did phenomenal in both roles. So it just really depends. It just depends on the person, how adaptable they are. But I think, me and George, we both agree, Matthew, that Peter Rice would be a good CEO. Yeah. Hopefully, maybe he's still pretty young. I mean, you never know. He might be the guy that takes over after Chapek.
Well, and kind of going back to the previous questions, that if Chapek were to bow out, and or the board decides to, release him of his duties as CEO, I think that they may be already having Rice in mind, in my personal opinion. I don't know that for sure. I can't confirm that. But I think that they could have a pretty good idea of who would replace Chapek if that was the case.
I'm sure there's contingency plans, and I'm sure Rice is on that list. Absolutely. And I've heard rumors pointing in that direction. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that, George. Okay, so the next and final question comes from Brian Dykstra. Brian's asking, since you also watch John Campea, yes, I do. I'm a big fan of Mr. Campea. I actually really enjoy his show. He goes on to say, what do you think about the conversation they had regarding the Disney corporate retreat being canceled because they basically had too many fires to put out? I agree with them in the fact it might be better for Disney stock if they wait till Chapek's contract is over, barring the board doesn't get too fed up before then. Okay, so basically what Brian is referring to, and Brian, I want to thank you for your question. Disney was supposed to have this corporate retreat. I guess it was going to take place in Florida, and they actually ended up canceling it because of the Florida bill controversy and all that stuff. There's just a lot of, like he said, a lot of fires to put out, right? So Disney said, hey, look, now's not the time. We're not going to have this retreat. Okay. What do you think, George? I mean, was that the right decision? Let's start with that. Was that the right decision to sort of put this retreat on hold, considering everything going on right now?
With everything going on right now, I think that was in Disney's best interest to do so, because if moving forward with, as Brian had put it, of quote unquote fires, that I think that would be adding a lot more fuel into the fire, because then that would confirm to the outside public, oh, Disney is not really paying attention to what the issues are and how to better it. And I think that was the best route to go for Disney right now, to not fully cancel that notion, but just kind of pull back and say, you know what, we're going to wait.
Yeah, I agree. It would have came off very tone deaf if they would have coming out of this controversy, or arguably even still in the controversy right now, and then to go on this corporate retreat. It just seems tone deaf. So Chapek and his team, they made the right decision to cancel that. Now, I don't know. I mean, look, I love John Campea. I'm a big fan of his show. I don't agree with him with everything. I do think in some ways he is a little overly harsh on Chapek with stuff. And that's neither here nor there. But on this, I definitely do agree with him.
He's very dedicated. I'll say that. He's very dedicated.
Yeah, he is. No, and that's the thing I like about Campea. I don't like when I watch content creators, I'm not looking to like just find people that like that's just gonna like repeat back to me my opinion. The reason why I like Campea, the reason why I respect Campea is because, hey, look, he's very passionate about his viewpoints. He knows what he's talking about. I don't always agree with him, but it comes from a place of like, hey, this is how I feel. And he's passionate about it. And I respect that. And that's why I watch him almost daily. I don't always get to watch his show, but I watch him very often, several times a week. So, but yeah, he is hard on Chapek. He's very hard on Chapek, but that's okay. That's his viewpoint. It's not his, as you say, not his Mad Hatter's cup of tea.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. It's very fascinating, this whole situation. We'll see where it goes from here with this whole thing. The Florida bill, the controversy seems to be kind of like it's starting to wane now, and things are calming down. So let's see what happens going forward. Hopefully Chapek stays out of the headlines for all the wrong reasons going forward. He needs a break. We had ScarJo, we had Florida bill. He needs a break. He needs some wins. And we got to start the healing process now and get things back on track,
Yes.
So.
And I do really feel, regardless of whoever feels, for or against the bill, that's not for me to say. And it's not even just proclaiming to this, but I think just as a whole, I feel that the Walt Disney Company does need to kind of pull back from the politics. Because I think in the long run, especially in today's era, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse in corporate politics every single day. And with Disney as a company of what Disney stands for being intertwined in that mix, they're going to get something on them every single time, because you can't please everybody, unfortunately. So, and I think on the political side, I do feel the company needs to pull back some.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah, you're right. I mean, they definitely, they're not pleasing anybody right now. I mean, whether you're left, whether you're right, whatever it is, I don't think anyone's real happy right now with Disney. Everyone's got their reasons, but no one's really happy, right? Yeah. Every side has an issue, and they're not pleasing anybody right now. So it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating.
But that,
Brian. Oh, go ahead, Jordan.
Oh, sorry. No, and then to the bottom part of the question, I do feel that after Chapek's contract is up, whether he renews or the board gets rid of him, I do feel that Disney will then, whoever then steps in, will then proceed forward with the corporate retreat after the fact. Whether Chapek stays on board or not, but as you had mentioned, OG, that once everything gets mended, then they could look at a better position time to go forward with the retreat.
Yeah. And hey, look, got to give credit where credit is due. I mean, this was, we talk a lot about the PR mess over at Disney, and how a lot of times they don't react the right way. This is one of those examples of Team Chapek reacting the right way. This was the right call. Canceling this retreat was the right call. From a public relations perspective, they absolutely made the right decision. It would, if they would have went through with that, that would have looked so bad. That would have looked
just another ding in the armor.
Right? Exactly. It's one more crack in the armor, and it's one more thing. And so they made the right decision. But I do still think, though, and I don't even know who's running the PR. I think it's someone from like BP Oil, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. And no disrespect to that person. Look, I'm just saying from what's been going on and how they've been handling a lot of stuff, this withstanding, because this is actually a good response. Yeah. But a lot of the other stuff has been really, really bad. And they might have to look into getting someone else to run the PR end of this, because there have been a lot of bad decisions.
Because it's not just about if you are, you're bad in PR. This person may be very good in PR, but he or she may not be the right fit for Disney.
Right. It's a different animal. Disney's a different animal. It's a completely different animal. And look, if Bob Chapek, a lot of people don't like Bob Chapek. And if Bob Chapek was running just about any other company, if Bob Chapek was running Comcast, or Bob Chapek was running Coca-Cola or Pepsi or something, right? He would probably be hailed as a fantastic CEO, because he's got the business mind. Mm-hmm. He understands business, right? But as a Disney CEO, when we've had the people that have run Disney have been very public. We've had Walt Disney, right? We've had Michael Eisner, hello, I'm Michael Eisner, head of the Walt Disney Company. Remember Wonderful World of Disney every Sunday with Michael Eisner?
He would do his intro every time.
Yeah, he had a lot of charisma, a lot of charm, right? We had Bob Iger, who was basically like the Tony Stark of the company, right? Mm-hmm. We had all these really great personalities. And then we have Chapek, who is a business-minded person who doesn't have the polish, doesn't have the
charisma.
That charisma and that persona. So it's jarring. Put Chapek in any other company, he would probably do fantastic. It's just Disney's a unique animal. It's a different kind of thing, and it demands a different kind of CEO. And that's a big part of the problem with Chapek, is that, he just doesn't have that charisma at all.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you.
Yeah. But George, buddy, I want to thank, and Brian, thank you for the question. A fantastic, fantastic question. George, I want to thank you, buddy, for coming on and tackling some of these questions with me today. It was a lot of fun.
It was. Always glad to be on.
It's always a pleasure to have you on, sir. If you can let everyone at home know where they can find you on social media.
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23, on Twitter at Disney George, and of course on Orange Grove 55's channel with Citrus Corner.
Yes. And by the way, video just dropped a little bit ago. It's another episode of Freshly Squeezed, and this guy right here, fresh from the Grove, this man right here, George, and our dear friend, collaborator, Dre Vaskai, they dived into the changes going on in New Orleans Square, the Blue Bayou. Fantastic conversation. Video just dropped I think like an hour ago now, but check it out. You can, I'm going to have a link at the end of this video, and you'll love it. Fantastic conversation. It's just George and Vash and their talking shop. It's loved it. Fantastic stuff. So
you will enjoy it.
You will definitely enjoy it. They get into some great topics in that one. But I want to thank everyone for watching this Q&A. If you have a question for me and George and Vash and the team, comment down below with your question in this video down below. I also periodically I get in the community tab and I'll do like a call to action and let you guys know that a Q&A is coming, and to comment in the community tab as well. So you can do it either way, really. It doesn't really matter. But we do a lot of Q&As. We do pull a lot from the comments. So there's a good chance if you're putting a question out there, as long as it's appropriate, we will answer it. So, it might not be, the next video, but eventually we'll get to that question. So I want to thank you all for watching. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.